Hello and welcome to the Rugby Gods podcast. I'm John Keenan. No mai haere mai. Today is January 25th, so let's talk some rugby. Alright, so what I wanted to do first with this is just quickly recap my Six Nations overview. So a couple of podcasts back, I just gave a pretty quick overview of the Six Nations 2020. I had a bit of a listen, I've already put it up, but I had a bit of a re-listen when I was doing my timestamps, etc. And I realized I misspoke a couple of times, and I also got a few things wrong. So yeah, just want to do a little bit of a clarification, correction. So probably the first thing to say sorry about was I said Ireland twice. There was two instances where I said Ireland and I really meant Italy. So yeah, I don't know, maybe you heard that or maybe it was confusing, but I apologize. There was a couple of instances where I essentially just said the wrong country. So I was trying to talk about Italy, but for some reason I said Ireland. So I think I did that at least two times. So apologies for that. Something else that I did or said was I didn't really have the facts in front of me, and I just sort of, like I say, spitball. I just chucked it out the top of my head that Italy had essentially been wooden spooners for 20 years. Now, that is not true. I have actually had a quick look through a different, separate little history of the Six Nations. Just, again, Wikipedia. Just had a quick look there. And so Italy has been in the competition. They started in 2000. So it's the 21st season. 2020 is the 21st season that Italy is in the competition. It's the 20th year of Italy being in the Six Nations, but it's their 21st season. So before it all kicks off next week, February 1st, maybe it's just quick. It's good to probably just quickly go over basically wooden spoons. So Six Nations wooden spoons. I've got the little stat up in front of me here. Italy has 14 of 20 wooden spoons. Scotland has 4. Wales has 1 in 2003, and France has 1 in 2013. So actually, I kind of remember the the Annus Horribilis year for France, 2013. So that's kind of when I was saying Italy's been last for 20 years. I was going, I think there might be some exception to that, and I certainly thought Scotland had probably been last once or twice as well. I was actually surprised to see Scotland have had the wooden spoon 4 times, which is 2004, 2007, 2012, and 2015. So they actually wooden spooned the Six Nations going into the 2015 Rugby World Cup, which I find pretty interesting, especially as they went on and made the quarterfinals of that 2015 Rugby World Cup and were in fact winning the quarterfinal versus Australia into the last minute or two, and it took a little bit of what could you say, refereeing. I don't know, I wouldn't say it was the worst call in the world. There was a very late last minute penalty that essentially allowed Australia to kick a winning quarterfinal goal there. So Scotland could well have actually made the 2015 semi-finals on the balance of probability. If you played that game 10 times, you probably actually would, from the position they were in with being up so late in the game. They probably could well have in 2015 probably 8-9 times out of 10 actually won that quarterfinal and then made a semi-final, which would have been against the HIGvCRU, against the Los Pumas, the Argentinians, which, who knows, sky's the limit from there, right? So that wooden spoon 2015 Scotland team could well have made a semi-final and or a final, back then, which I find quite interesting. But yeah, so Italy haven't been quite as bad as I said a few podcasts back, but 14 wooden spoons out of 20. And there's another stat there which has the years that teams have won the wooden spoon, and then years in bold indicates that the team didn't win any matches. So yeah, that 2015 Scotland team is in bold because it got the 2015 wooden spoon and it won no Six Nations matches. So horrible start to the year, but they had a pretty good World Cup later. But if you just have a look around that with Italy, the tale becomes even worse, or it really does become quite a big concern. So 2014, Italy got the wooden spoon, and again it's the wooden spoon with no wins. 2015, like I've said, Scotland got the wooden spoon with no wins. 2016, 2017, 2018 and 2019, Italy has gotten the wooden spoon, and they have all been with no wins. So that's extremely concerning, I think, if you're the administrators, and obviously if you're Italy. Essentially the back end of your 20 years in this competition, your last sort of 5-6 years in this competition have been pretty horrendous. So yeah, again, good luck to Italy, good luck to all the teams really. I really passionately support any Northern Hemisphere team. That's not to say that I don't respect them or I hate them or anything like that. I don't. But I just don't passionately have a Northern Hemisphere national team that I like. Like I said, last year I did pick Wales. I was sort of asked for a pick and I picked Wales. But that was just based on form really. And then yeah, this year I'm picking England, not for a Grand Slam, just for a championship, a Six Nations championship. No Grand Slam though. And again, I'm not picking it because I love England. It's just what I think, or just looking at personnel. I think they've got what it takes to win the 2020 championship. So yeah, hopefully I've got through a little bit of a correction there, a little bit of follow-up from my Six Nations chat from a couple of episodes back. And then the next thing I want to do, or like what I want to move on to now, it's going to be most of this podcast, will be some of the preseason games. So I have updates on 2 New Zealand preseason games that have just been played in the last couple of days. That being essentially January 24th, January 25th. Or maybe both games were played on the 25th. I'm not actually sure about that, but essentially final preseason games for all 4 teams involved, which was the Blues at home to the Hurricanes and the Highlanders at home to the Crusaders in Wanaka, Otago country. So yeah, might as well quickly follow up on the results of those 2 final preseason games for the New Zealand teams. I don't think the Chiefs were playing this weekend or this final week, so yeah, they're just not involved, and they're going to kick off the Super Rugby season on Friday. That'll be January 31st, or 31st of January, this coming Friday. Earlier kickoff time as well. New Zealand kickoff times have been brought forward, so there's going to be, I think, quite a few more day games in terms of afternoon matches, and all the nighttime games will be 7 o'clock kickoffs, not 7:30, so 30 minutes earlier than normal if you're trying to watch those live somewhere. So yeah, let's touch on the Blues, or the Blues of the Hurricanes from Oniwa Domain, which is North Shore or North Harbour in Auckland. And the result was 29-28 to the Blues. They got up to a fairly decent lead there at one stage. I think half time in that game was, just struggling to bring it up here. Half time was certainly dominated by, well, the first half was certainly dominated by the Blues. They scored 3 unanswered tries. Hurricanes opened the scoring with a try, and then there was 3 unanswered tries to the Blues before a further try to the Hurricanes. It was 17-14 to the Blues at half time, and then after the half they kicked on and scored a couple more tries to go out 29-14 at one stage, and then the Canes came back with the final 2 converted tries to make it 29-28 to the Blues. Again, you can't read too much into it. These preseason games are either being played as like quarters, so maybe 80-minute games into 4 quarters, or they might be being played as two 40-minute halves like a normal rugby game, but you're dealing with 15 on the field at any one time, but perhaps 10, 15, 20 just rolling substitutions in the game. So it's not really massively indicative. I wouldn't get too impressed or too worried about Super Rugby or like preseason performances really. But 29-28 to the Blues, well done. That means that they back up their previous win over the Chiefs with a second preseason win over the Hurricanes. For the Hurricanes, I think a reasonable showing. They're on their way out. Basically, they're passing through Auckland and they're on their way out to the Republic, to South Africa, where they're going to start and play against the Stormers next Saturday, Feb 1. So, it's sort of a bit of pre-season, almost a bit of first leg, almost a bit of extra training, on the way to round 1 in Cape Town against the Stormers. But 29-28 against that Blues outfit, like I've said, some good buying from the Blues. They look deep and they look classy in some good areas. So I think good for the Blues, 2 wins over the Chiefs and Hurricanes, and good for the Hurricanes, not massively handled well by the Crusaders last week or in the first week of preseason, but showed got out early with a couple of tries and finished it off with a try to limit the damage, I guess, a little bit, the rampant Crusaders. And then played pretty well there against the Blues. 5 tries to 4 to the Blues, 29-28, not much in it. So relatively impressed with the Hurricanes. Obviously, massively, big luck, big shout out to them. Hope they go well. Next week away in Cape Town. It's going to be a very difficult game. And then that's followed up, I believe, by round 2 in Buenos Aires versus the HIGvCRU, who, again, pretty big form team, in my opinion, at the start of the season. So, difficult road trip to start the year, but that is kind of the way it is with the Hurricanes more years often than not, right? Or has been certainly recently. So let's move on to the other Super Rugby game, or the other Super Rugby preseason game featuring New Zealand teams. It was the Crusaders and the Highlanders. And basically I'll just read you the heading here. Obviously I'll probably put these links into the show notes, but I'll just read you the heading and I think you'll get the idea. Super Rugby, Crusaders thrash Highlanders in Wanaka trial. Wanaka being the place, small town, Otago country. So 41-7 win over the Highlanders, although it might not exactly tell you the full story. First half, or I believe this game was actually one of those games where they played it in quarters, i.e. 4 20-minute quarters. But essentially the first half was 12-7 to the Crusaders. So Highlanders were hanging in there in the first 2 quarters, or the first half, but they essentially got blown away in the second half. Which I guess is a little bit similar to the Crusaders Hurricanes, first preseason game that was down in Ashburton. Something fairly similar was going on there. Crusaders basically just had a lot of class in the third period or the third quarter of that game too. So 41-7 to the Crusaders, backing up from their win the week before against against the Hurricanes. So 2 wins for the Crusaders, 2 wins for the Blues, 1 loss for the Chiefs, 2 losses for the Hurricanes, and also 2 losses for the Highlanders. The Highlanders losing to the Waratahs in their first game, and then losing at home the second game here to the Crusaders. So that's a bit of an update of the New Zealand teams and sort of where they're at a little bit with their Super Rugby preseason. It's essentially all over for the New Zealand teams now. They're just sitting back and getting ready for their Friday, Saturday games coming up, January 31st and February 1st. So what do I want to do next? I think I will just stay with the New Zealand teams, and really just focus on those 5 New Zealand teams, just to give you one more sort of Super Rugby wrap up. I'm going to focus on the New Zealand Conference and the 5 New Zealand teams. It's kind of what I know. It's kind of my passion. I'm a big Hurricanes man. Also got a little bit of love there for the Crusaders and Highlanders. Maybe not quite so much for the Chiefs and Blues, but you know how it is. All the New Zealand teams, always interesting watching them. I always follow their games when they're in South Africa, when they're in the Republic, be it the Highlanders or Chiefs, the Blues or Crusaders. I generally try and watch at least one of their games on the road in South Africa or in Argentina. So yeah, I like all the teams, but massive Hurricanes man, and then Crusaders pretty reasonable, and the Highlanders pretty reasonable. Went to university down there in Otago. So yeah, let's just go through those 5 New Zealand teams, and again I'm going back to the Wikipedia, the Super Rugby transfers, or list of 2019-20 Super Rugby transfers. So I've used this at least twice before, but again, like I've said a couple of times, I just find it to be really useful in terms of showing you the 2019 squad, who's out, who's in, and then the 2020 roster, like this year's roster. So what I'm going to do with this is just try and be brief, just try and focus on the 5 New Zealand teams, and then finish off with something else, or essentially a few links that I've found. So if we look at the Blues, let's have a look at what we've got here. So 2020 players, who's in for the props? Essentially nobody. They're going actually with the props that they had last year, so that's quite a lot of continuity. So let's go through that. We've got Alex Hodgman, Ezekiel Lindemuth, Sione Mafaleo, Marcel Renata, Kau Tuanukiafe, and Ofa Tonga-Afasi. So certainly got some pretty good squad depth there at prop. If we have a look at the hookers, we've got Kurt Eklund, Ray Nuia, and James Parsons. So Eklund and Nuia additions. Blues have lost Apisai to the Sunwolves and Matt Moulds to Worcester in England. Going on to their locks, we've got Aaron Carroll, Jared Cowley-Tuiati, Josh Goodhue, Jacob Pearce, and Patrick Tuipulotu. So again, some good depth there. Definitely got two or three quality locks there, Super Rugby locks. Got scrapped into the Hurricanes and picked up Aaron Carroll from Bay of Plenty, which is like New Zealand provincial level. Into the flankers, there's quite a lot more movement here. So they've got Blake, they've got Blake Gibson, Tony Lamborn, Dalton Papali'i, Waimana Redlinger Kapa, Tom Robinson, Hoskins Satutu, and James Tucker. So lost Jed Brown, Matt Matic, and Jimmy Tupou. Some pretty good levels, some pretty good names at Super Rugby level there to lose, but they have picked up Tony Lamborn, who was a former Hurricane, played national rugby for the USA, for the Eagles, and he is coming from the New Orleans Gold. But he is a Super Rugby, or he has been a former Super Rugby player, so he's a Super Rugby level player for sure. And then Waimana Redlinger Kapa from Auckland, and James Tucker from Waikato, provincial level New Zealand. Some reasonable, I wouldn't say they've exactly replaced the quality that they've lost there in the flankers, but you've still got the likes of Papali'i to lead that. Blake Gibson's there, and Tony Lamborn's coming too, so we'll see what happens. And then obviously at number 8 they've got Akira Ioane, who they had last year and is pretty spectacular at Super Rugby level, so not too bad in the forwards. If we go through to the halfback, the scrum half, the 9, we've talked about this at least once or twice I guess, but we'll just quickly go back through it. They've got Finlay Christie, Sam Nock, and Jonathan Ruru. So they lost Augustine Pulu to Japan, and they picked up Finlay Christie from the Hurricanes. Decent stable of halfbacks there. At fly half, first 5, 10, they've got Beauden Barrett, Otedi Black, Jack Hayton, Stephen Perifetta, and Harry Plummer. So 5 10s. Jack Hayton is coming from North Harbour. Obviously Beauden Barrett's coming from the Hurricanes. and then they've retained Black, Perifetta and Plummer, so got a lot of depth there. Centres, they got TJ Faiani, Rico Ioane, not so sure about that, Joe Marchant and Taniana Talia. So who have they lost? Levi Almoa has been returned to the Tasman Marcos, to the provincial level, essentially been released. Ma'anonu gone to San Diego in America, San Diego Legion, and Sonny Bill Williams has gone to the Toronto Wolfpack, which I believe is a rugby league, a Canadian rugby league team. So yeah, lost a couple of, big name stars, but kind of old in the tooth kind of stars. Released Levi Almoa, interesting, and then they picked up Joe Marchant from Harlequins on a sabbatical, sort of like a Harlequins sabbatical for Joe Marchant, and I think he's going to be a very exciting player for Blues. So it looked pretty reasonable in the centres. What have we got here in the wings? Caleb Clark, Matt Duffy, Jordan Highland, Amoni Narawa, and Mark Talia. Lost Malani Nanai to the Worcester Warriors in England. Picked up Jordan Highland from the Highlanders, and picked up Narawa, have difficulty saying that, and Talia from Bay of Plenty and from North Harbour. So again, kind of gone over the back three quite extensively in another podcast, so won't touch on it too much here. Fullbacks, they've got Jared Page. They lost Michael Collins to the Highlanders, and Jordan Trainer has essentially been released back to Auckland provincial level. So yeah, in that back three, well, what would you say? Definitely a lot of 10 cover, and obviously I think Perifetta might play a fair amount of game time at fullback. Obviously you've got Bowden Barrett coming back in mid-season as well, and Rico Ioane listed in the centres. So the wings and fullbacks, maybe they look a little bit underdone if you were to, if I just read them off like I did. But obviously you've got to factor in the fact that, Ioane's listed as a centre, Rico Ioane that is, and then, Bowden Barrett to come back mid-season as a 10, and Steve Perifetta as a 10. And I think you'll find both of those players playing, some serious minutes in the back three. But yeah, Blues look pretty reasonable. I think, it's going to be a good season for them. I'm going to go through the rest of these teams now, but, Blues looking reasonable. So with the Chiefs, let's go through this. Props, we've got Rob Cobb, Ryan Coxon, Ross Glendenhouse, Nepo Lalala, Atu Moli, Ollie Norris, Ruben O'Neill, Aidan Ross, and Angus Ta'avao. So they've actually put in their wider training squad players, which means that they've really filled out the roster here, or someone has really filled out their roster here. So pickups for them, losses for them. So Kane Hames, Sefa Kautai, and Tavita Mafaleo. So Kane Hames is injured. Sefa Kautai to Kobelco Steelers in Japan, and Tavita Mafaleo to the Hurricanes. Interesting. Okay, and then I didn't actually know Tavita Mafaleo was with the Hurricanes. We'll come across them later, I guess. So they got Rob Cobb, Ross Glendenhouse, and Ollie Norris. So Cobb and Norris from the Waikato provincial team, Glendenhouse from the Hurricanes. So yeah, quite a number of props there. You would have to say probably led by Nepo Lalala, and then you've got Atu Moli, Angus Ta'avao. So a number of All Blacks, Rugby World Cup All Blacks there, and then Ross Glendenhouse coming in from the Hurricanes too. Quite a lot of depth. Even Ruben O'Neill, who was a little bit of a standout or a breakout player a couple of seasons back, and Aidan Ross. So yeah, plenty of depth there. Hookers, we've got Nathan Harris, Donald Maka, Bradley Slater, and Samasoni Takaleo. So Liam Polwart has retired, and Donald Maka has come in from Counties Manukau, provincial level New Zealand. So yeah, again led by Harris, and then Samasoni Takaleo, Taukiaho. I think it's Samasoni Taukiaho. Sorry to butcher that name. He was pretty reasonable for, I believe it was Waikato last year in the NPC level. It was pretty good. So, but yeah, led by Nathan Harris. Hookers looking reasonable. Locks, you got Naitoa Naitoa Akui, I think it is. He's a Wellington boy. I've actually sort of followed him through his college days in age grade level, but he's certainly a Wellington boy. Michael Allardyce, Tyler Ardron, Lachlan McFennell, and Tupou Vaia. So who did they lose? Finn Hoata, who's gone back to Taranaki, kind of been released. Damon Lisuasu, don't really remember him. He was on a short-term deal last year and he's gone to Japan. And then obviously Brodie Retallick is in Japan as well. So their pickups were Naitoa Aokui. Sorry, can't pronounce that one very well either. Naitoa Akui. I've seen that name a lot. Haven't really heard it pronounced too much. He's coming in from Wellington Provincial, and Tupou Vaia is coming from Taranaki. So yeah, not too bad. Maybe a little bit underdone in the locking there, but especially if you're going to play, well, you've listed Tyler Ardron as a lock. I think you're probably playing more in the back row as a 6 or an 8. So yeah, interesting to see there. Maybe they're a little bit underdone in the locking stocks. Onto the flankers in number 8. So flankers, you've got Lachlan Boshier, Sam Cane, Luke Jacobson, Mitchell Karpik, Dylan Nell, Peter Gus Sowakula, and James Thompson. So some quality in the in the flankers. Got some absolute quality there. Who have they lost? They've lost Mitch Jacobson to the Sunwolves, Jesse Parite. I've definitely heard of that guy. Seen him around a few times. Well, seen him a lot. But again, butchering the name a little bit, to the Highlanders. Jesse Parite to the Highlanders, and Taniala Asio has gone to Japan. So yeah, lost a bit of quality there. Replaced with Dylan Nell from Otago and James Thompson from Waikato, coming from the NPC level, the provincial level. But yeah, pretty stacked flankers, I have to say. Look very deep at flanker, maybe a little shallow at lock. Number 8, they've got 2, Mitchell Brown and Adam Thompson. Adam Thompson from 2011 Rugby World Cup All Black winning vintage. Still getting it done in 2020. It's pretty amazing. So yeah, they've retained Mitchell Brown and they've added Adam Thompson. So they've got some serious depth, in the back row. Locks, perhaps could be looking to use 1 or 2 of your flankers 8s to subsidize what you're maybe missing a little bit in the locking department. But yeah, so that's that. On to the back line. Have a look at the scrum half 9. We've got Leroy Carter, Lisati Milo Harris, Titoiro Tahuriarangi, and Brad Weber. So pretty reasonable. They've lost Jonathan Taumatene to the Hurricanes, picked up Leroy Carter from Bay of Plenty, and Lisati Milo Harris from Taranaki. A couple of provincial level boys. So yeah, obviously that's going to be led by Brad Weber, with Titoiro Tahuriarangi, challenging him for minutes and challenging him as much as he can, really. Weber looked really great in 2019, so it'll be interesting to see how he goes in 2020. But yeah, 2 quality 9s and some young talent there. Fly half or 10, they've got Aaron Cruden, Tian Falcon, Damien McKenzie, and Caleb Trask. Jack Debrasini moved on, former Rebels and then Chiefs man, has moved on to Japan, as has Stephen Donald. Pickups, Aaron Cruden from Montpellier, huge pickup, huge win for them, and Caleb Trask from Bay of Plenty. As you can see, there's a number of Bay of Plenty players coming in to both the Auckland and the Chiefs, basically because Bay of Plenty won the championship, the provincial level championship, like the B competition. They had a really good season, and you can see a number of their players are sifting into the Blues and sifting into the Chiefs here. But yeah, that 10 stock looks very good. 9s and 10s for the Chiefs look very good, very deep. I think they'll be pretty happy with that. In the centres, they've got Auburn Ledger, Anton Leonard-Brown, Tamua Manu, Alex Nankivell, and Balin Sullivan. Incredibly, they have not lost anyone and they have not picked up anybody in the midfield. They've just got the same 5 guys, so that's a lot of continuity there. Onto the wings and fullbacks. Wingers, Solomon Alaimalo, Kini Naholo, Etini Nanai Satoru, Sean Stevenson, Quinn Tupaia, and Sean Wainui. So again, like I've said before in a previous podcast, just absolutely stacked in terms of wingers. It's incredible lineup there. If you know those names, Alaimalo, he's a fullback. You can certainly play. You certainly probably would play him at fullback as much as you play him as a wing, and he's very, very high quality at Super Rugby level. Kini Naholo, Waisaki Naholo's little brother, Nanai Satoru, the one to watch, is an emerging talent. Sean Stevenson, much like Alaimalo, has been around for 3 or 4 seasons now and is very good at Super Rugby level. Quinn Tupaia, getting a shot from Waikato at provincial level. He's been great over the last couple of seasons, and he's getting a shot at Super Rugby this year. And then Sean Wainui has been quality for a couple of different Super Rugby teams. So yeah, who did they lose? Atiata Moyakola, who was the Japanese, I believe he's in the Japanese system. I think he was in the Japanese under 20 system, and he's gone back to Japan. So yeah, they've lost him, but they picked up Kini Naholo and Quinn Tupaia from Taranaki and Waikato provinces, New Zealand provincial level. Finally, fullback, they've got Sam McNichol, returning from season. I think he had a season-ending injury, or didn't play last year due to injury. Marty McKenzie's moved on to Ospreys. Sam McNichol back from injury. So yeah, again, huge amount of talent there. Obviously, Damien McKenzie will be playing a lot in the back three, i.e. primarily fullback, and then perhaps moving in to finish off games. I'd imagine Aaron Cruden and/or Tian Falcon will be starting a lot at 10 with McKenzie at 15 if everybody's injury-free, and then McKenzie might be coming in to finish games. That would be sort of what I think. So a huge amount of talent, a huge amount of just pressure on to even make the 23 there. It's an incredible amount of depth for the Chiefs. Onto the Crusaders. Let's have a look at props. Michael Alatoa, Harry Allen, George Bauer, Oliver Jaeger, Joe Moody, and Issa Tungafasi. So they've lost Owen Franks to Northampton, and Tim Perry has been released back to Tasman by the look of things, which is quite interesting. Tim Perry, I believe, has played for the All Blacks in the last 4 or 5 years, so he's now missed out on a Super Rugby contract, which is quite surprising. Basically, they've had no ins. They've just retained their 2019 players, and then released Tim Perry to Tasman provincial level, and lost Franks to Northampton Saints. On Franks to Northampton Saints. But yeah, Alatoa, Moody, the younger Tunga Afasi, you've got some good players there. Might be looking for Ollie Jaeger to play a few more minutes for you. Harry Allen, George Bauer, they're going to see some more minutes this year. Hooking, they've got Andrew Makaleo, Brodie McAllister, and Cody Taylor. They lost Ben Funnell to the Ricoh Black Rams in Japan. Again, it's a pretty decent, like Taylor, Makaleo, that's a pretty good 1-2 punch for your hooking stocks. Yeah, onto the locks. Scott Barrett, Mitchell Dunshea, Luke Romano, and Quentin Strange. Pretty good quartet there. Sam Whitelock has been lost to the Panasonic Wild Knights in Japan. He's on essentially sabbatical. Will be back next year. Scott Barrett is taking over the Crusaders captaincy. Onto the flankers, we've got Ethan Blackadder. That would be the same Blackadder, like Todd Blackadder's son. Tom Christie, Cullen Grace, Billy Harmon, Sione Havili, Ethan Roots, and Tom Sanders. So a couple of big losses: Jordan Tarfor to Leicester in England, and Matt Todd to Japan, replaced by Tom Christie, Cullen Grace, Sione Havili, and Ethan Roots. Christie and Grace are both from the Canterbury provincial team, Havili from the Tasman team, and Ethan Roots from North Harbour. So a lot of their flanking talent has essentially been replaced by provincial level, like New Zealand provincial level players. Be interesting to see how they go. Ethan Blackadder, Billy Harmon might have to step up, play a few more minutes. See how that goes. Maybe a little bit of weakness there for the Crusaders. And then their number 8 is Fitu Douglas. They lost Kieran Reid to Japan and essentially to New Zealand retirement, and Kieran Reid's going to play out his years in Japan at the present for Toyota BLUvHUR. So they had Douglas and Reid last year. They basically found no one for Reid, and they just retained Whetu Douglas as their lone number 8. But yeah, perhaps a little bit of weakness in that back row for the Crusaders, maybe. Definitely something for teams to maybe think about in their planning. Scrum halves, so let's go out to scrum half 9 and have a look at the back line. So Mitchell Drummond, Eri Enare, and Bryn Hall. So again, consistency. That's the 3 halfbacks they had last year, and they've retained them. Fly half, first 5-10, you've got Fergus Burke, Brett Cameron, and Richie Mo'unga. So they lost Mitchell Hunt to the Highlanders, picked up Fergus Burke from Canterbury Provincial level. Again, pretty good stable, very good stable of 9-10s there. Like I've said before, Mitchell Drummond, Bryn Hall, it's essentially a 2-for-1, and start with Mo'unga, have maybe Cameron in the pocket. You have the likes of Eri Enare and Fergus Burke to perhaps play 1 or 2 games, or come on from the bench in 1 or 2 games where the Crusaders maybe feel they're extremely dominant. It's just a lot of good squad depth there at 9-10. Have a look in the centres. You've got Braden Enoa, Inga Finau, Jack Goodhue, and Dallas McLeod. So they've lost Tim Bateman and Ryan Crotty, both the Japanese teams. A lot of experience there lost. They picked up Finau from Canterbury and McLeod from Canterbury provincial level. So yeah, probably look for Jack Goodhue and Braden Enoa to be playing some big minutes, and perhaps creating a new sort of long-term all-star cast in the Canterbury midfield perhaps. And then you've got wingers here, George Bridge, Lester Fainganuku, Will Jordan, Manasa Mataele, Fetuli Paya, and Sevu Reece. So again, not much, pretty consistent, not much loss, not much gain. So Ngani Punavai has gone to the Highlanders, and Fetuli Paya has come in from Tasman provincial level. The other players, the other 5 wingers, have all been retained from last year. At fullback, you've just got David Havili. Last year you had Israel Dag, but he's retired, and then you haven't really replaced him with anyone. You've just got David Havili as your lone fullback. But of course, the likes of Will Jordan and even George Bridge could certainly play 15 for you if you wanted or needed it. So again, incredible backline. If you were picking the 2020 Super Rugby on backline alone, I don't think anybody goes near that backline in the Super Rugby competition. But you've got to pick it on a forward pack. Can the forward pack provide decent, clean ball, good ball for that backline to do its thing? And that will be the proof, will be in the pudding there. As I've said, the loss for the Crusaders of Whitelock on sabbatical, and then obviously Taufua and Todd in the loose forwards, and Reid as your number 8. It's a huge amount of All Black level talent that's missing in action this year. In fact, if I just quickly go through who's out of the 2019 Crusaders squad, or who's out of the 2020 squad, that's Owen Franks and Tim Perry as props, Ben Fennell as a hooker, Sam Whitelock as a lock, Jordan Taufua and Matt Todd as flankers, and Kieran Reid as an 8. Now, that's essentially, they're all high quality Super Rugby players and or All Black level players. So the Crusaders have definitely lost talent in the forward pack, and just whether or not what they've replaced it with is good enough will be interesting. Because certainly if they can get parity on another team in Super Rugby, I think that backline is going to pretty much destroy most backlines it comes up against. Moving on to the Highlanders here. So Highlanders, let's have a look at their props. We've got Ethan de Groot, Josh Iosefa-Scott, Aidan Johnston, Daniel Leonard-Brown, Jeff Thwaites, and Siati Tokalahi. So who have they lost? Sefa Fa'agasi, to Japan, and Tyrell Lomax to the Hurricanes. Who have they brought in? Ethan de Groot from Southland and Jeff Thwaites from Bay of Plenty. So again, a couple of provincial level players. Props. I think Daniel Leonard-Brown and Siati Tokalahi are going to have to really lead that. But yeah, maybe looking a little bit chiller there. Hookers, got Liam Coltman, Ash Dixon, and Nathan Bella. That's a really good, that's a really good three. Some very good depth there. So they lost Ricky Jackson and Ray Nuia. Ricky Jackson is injured, and Ray Nuia to the Blues, and they picked up Nathan Bella from the Sunwolves. But yeah, the three hookers there look very, very good, I must say. Into the locks for the Highlanders, you've got Josh Dixon, Pari Parkinson, Manaki Selby Rickett, and Jack Wedden, son of former All Black great Gary Wedden, I believe. Who did they lose? Tom Franklin to Japan and Jackson Hemapo to Japan. So that's quite a lot of experience in certainly a lot of Super Rugby level experience and quality there that they've lost, and they've only really replaced it with Manaki Selby Rickett from Southland, provincial level player. So yeah, Josh Dixon, Pari Parkinson, going to have to step up there. Perhaps Jesse Parati as well, who's listed as a flanker, might have to see a bit of step up there. And then obviously you've got someone like Jack Wedden, he's got pedigree, just like Ethan Blackadder has pedigree. Will they step up and actually be good Super Rugby players in their own right? So yeah, onto the flankers. We've got Tiariki Ben Nicholas, Shannon Frizzell, Dylan Hunt, Zane Capelli, James Lynchies, Sione Missiloi, and Jesse Parati. So quite a number of new faces there for the Highlanders at flanker. They lost Luke Whitelock to Pau in France, picked up Tiariki Ben Nicholas, picked up Zane Capelli, picked up Sione Missiloi, and Jesse Parati from the Chiefs. Nicholas from Wellington Province, Capelli from Bay of Plenty, and Missiloi from Otago. So yeah, pretty good talent there. I'd be led by Hunt, Frizzell, Lynchies, Jesse Parati, as I've said 5 times on this podcast already, coming from the Chiefs, and then down there can kind of play 6, can play lock. So you've got a bit there. And then number 8, just the one, Marino Makaili Tui. Sorry, Marino Makaili Tui. Sorry, again, seen that name many times, seen him play, but haven't really had to say his name or pronounce it too much. Apologies for that. Losses for them at 8, Elliot Dixon and Liam Squire, both taking off to Japan. So yeah, just quickly there, when you look at the locks and flankers, who did they lose from last year? Tom Franklin and Jackson Hemapo in the locking, Luke Whitelock flanker, and then Elliot Dixon, Liam Squire as number 8. That's a huge amount of experience, talent to walk out the door, and it's pretty much all been replaced by provincial level New Zealand competition players. So yeah, it could be a little bit tough for the Highlanders, and it seems like it's sort of panning out that way a little bit with their pre-season. A couple of pretty convincing or thorough losses to both the Waratahs away and the Crusaders at home. Let's go on to the backline. The backline is looking good. This is the poison chalice, right? If your forward pack can't provide you with good ball, then there's no point really having that Rolls Royce backline. And that might well be something that the Highlanders come across this year quite often, because the backline really does look very good. Let's go through the scrum halves 9s. Got Falau Fakatava, Kane Hamilton, and Aaron Smith. So they've retained the 3 halfbacks from last year. Again, some good continuity there for the Highlanders. At fly half, first 5-10, they've got Bryn Gatlin, Mitch Hunt, and Josh Ioane. So Marty Banks has gone to Japan. Dan Hollinstead has been released back to Bay of Plenty. And they've picked up Mitch Hunt from the Crusaders. So retaining Ioane and Gatlin, and then picking up Mitch Hunt to go along with a stable of Aaron Smith, Kane Hemmington, and Folau Fakatava as your halfbacks. That's a very good 9-10 squad depth there for the Highlanders. But again, what kind of ball are you getting, from your forwards? If you have a look into the centres, Scott Gregory, Rob Thompson, Theo Tompkinson, Thomas Umaga Jensen, and Taorangi Walden. That's some really good centres. It's a quality stable of Super Rugby centres right there. Who did they lose? Richard Buckman to Japan and Matt Faddis to Ulster. Who did they pick up? Scott Gregory from Northlands. He's in and around the New Zealand Sevens program and has been a New Zealand under-20s player. So again, very good pick, provincial level pick. Into the wings. So wingers, we've got Tima Fainganuku, Josh Mackay, Tavita Nabura, Jonah Nariki, and Ngani Punavai. So yeah, quite a lot of talent there in the wings. Let's just go through who they lost. Jordan Highland back to the Blues, Tavita Lee to Japan, and Waisaki Nahola to London Irish. Pickups, Tima Fainganuku, Jonah Nariki, and Ngani Punavai. Fainganuku coming from Tasman, Nariki coming from Otago provincial level, and Ngani Punavai coming from the Crusaders. So yeah, I like that. Back three's definitely got some talent. It's young, it's fresh, but I think it's definitely got some talent for sure. And then you go back to the fullback, and you've got a bit of experience here. You've got Michael Collins and Chris Kurandrani. So who did they lose? Ben Smith, gone to Power in France. But they picked up Michael Collins from the Blues, and then Chris Kurandrani from Counties, Manukau, New Zealand provincial level. But Chris Kurandrani has definitely played Super Rugby before, definitely at least for the Reds. So a little bit of experience there at the back to go with the youth on the wings. I really like that back line, but will it shine? Will it ever see the light of day, if you know what I mean? Will it ever get quality ball in the big matches with that kind of forward pack and the losses in that forward pack for the Highlanders? I think that's going to be a real Achilles heel, unfortunately, for them. And moving on to the final team, which would be the Hurricanes. So let's go through the players there for 2020, and then that's pretty much it for this podcast. So with the Hurricanes, we've got Fraser Armstrong, Alex Fido, Tyrell Lomax, Tavita Mafaleo, Ben May, Xavier Numia, and Puri Rakiti Stones. So yeah, who we lost, or who have the Hurricanes lost? Chris Eves to the Sunwolves, Ross Lendinghouse to the Chiefs, Toby Smith retired, former Australian international, played a couple of seasons to close out his career with the Hurricanes. Reasonable. Jeff Tumonga Allen to Wasps in London. So a fair bit of experience lost there. Pick buy-ins, Tyrell Lomax from the Highlanders, very good buy. Tavita Mafalea from the Chiefs, and then Pori Rakiti Stones from Hawke's Bay. Who's going to lead that for you? Well, I think you're going to want a lot out of Alex Fido and Tyrell Lomax there. You're also going to want a lot out of Ben May. I believe he's 36 or 37 now. He's an old stalwart of Hurricanes in New Zealand rugby. So yeah, you'd probably want those three to be leading things. Fraser Armstrong has been there or thereabouts for a year or two as well. And then you've got Tavita Mafaleo coming from the Chiefs, Xavier Numia in for another season. He's also a Wellington Province boy. So yeah, there's enough depth there. I think the props look reasonable for the Hurricanes. If we go through to the hookers, we've got Asafa Omoa, Dane Coles, and Ricky Riccatelli. So they've retained the three hookers from last year, and James O'Reilly has been returned to Wellington, essentially been released. He was on a short-term contract last year and he's been released. But yeah, you've retained essentially the quality Super Rugby hookers that you've had last year, Almoa, Coles and Riccatelli. It's a good stable. So yeah, props and hookers looking pretty reasonable for the Hurricanes. Onto locks, James Blackwell, Kane Laupepe, Liam Mitchell, Scott Scrafton, Isaiah Walker-Leowerdi. So losses for the Hurricanes, Jeff Cridge has essentially been released back to Hawke's Bay. Andreas Ferreira has gone back to the Bulls, and then Sam Louty has gone to Scarlets in Wales. So yeah, Andreas Ferreira came on a short-term contract because there was a massive locking injury issue for the Hurricanes. So not really a big win or a big loss there. I don't think he played, and then we've just released him back to the Bulls. Jeff Cridge has been released after a couple of seasons. Again, a player that never really saw any game time. And then Sam Lousy has gone to Scarlets, which is a bit of a loss. But we played most of last season without Lousy. He was injured for most of the Super Rugby season. So those losses are essentially, they weren't around last year either. Scott Scrafton from the Blues, that's a really good pickup for the Hurricanes. Really bolsters them there. I think you'd lead that with Scrafton and Laupepe, I think, with perhaps Walker Leawere pushing to get into that starting, like one of those two starting roles. And of course you've got the utility of James Blackwell as well. So a very undersized lock, but you could certainly play him as a lock 6 utility. He's got a big engine on him. Smaller type in terms of, doesn't have too much height, but very versatile, can play lock 6 and just has a really big engine on him around the field. So locks look reasonable for the Hurricanes on top of pretty reasonable props and hookers. So, maybe my pessimism about my own team, the Hurricanes, maybe it's a little bit unfounded. Maybe I'm just not paying enough attention to the type 5, which actually looks pretty damn solid now that I've gone through it. So let's have a look at flankers. What do we got on top of that? We've got Vaya Fafita, Devin Flanders, Duplessis Karifi, Reed Princep, Adi Savia, and Murphy Taramai. So who have we lost, or who have the Hurricanes lost there? Hayden Bedwell-Curtis to Japan and Sam Henwood to Japan. You'd have to say a couple of peripheral players who were reasonable but didn't get a lot of game time over the last year or 2 years. Who have we picked up? Devin Flanders from Hawke's Bay and Murphy Taramai from North Harbour. So provincial level players replaced essentially provincial level players. So who's going to lead out the flankers there? Well, obviously Vaya Fafita is going to want to be a bit of an enforcer there. Duplessis Karifi in the open side. And then you've got the likes of Reed Princep as well, and Adi Savia, of course, but Adi unfortunately is out with a long-term injury. He went and had surgery in the off-season, so it was a very signposted, I'm out, I'm going to be out for half the Super Rugby season sort of thing. So the flanking stocks are sort of down there. There's not going to be an Adi Savia probably until week 8, week 10, something like that. So you're going to have to see a fair amount of lifting from Fafita and Karifi and Princep in the flanking positions in 6, 7, and even 8. And then who do they have at 8? Well, they've got Gareth Evans. So last year they had Gareth Evans and they've retained him. And Gareth Evans is a really good player. I really like him. But unfortunately last year he's injured a lot. So hopefully we can get some more minutes out of him. I think we're going to need it, especially until Adi Savia comes back mid-competition. So onto the back line, onto the scrum halves, the 9s. Hurricanes have Jamie Booth, TJ Perenara, and Jonathan Taumatene. So they've lost Finlay Christie to the Blues and Richard Judd to Suntory in Japan. I actually quite liked Richard Judd. I wish he had stayed around for another year. I think it would have been good for his game, and obviously it would have been good for the Hurricanes, but we've lost him. Christie to the Blues, not too worried about that at all. Goodbye, good luck. But picking up Jamie Booth, coming back from a really good season with the Sunwolves, that's great. Really lifted his game. He was pretty average for the Hurricanes a couple of years back. Got a Sunwolves contract and played much better rugby, much better Super Rugby last year, and he's now back with the Hurricanes, so that's great. And then Jonathan Taumatene coming from the Chiefs as well. So, Perenara backed up by Booth and Taumatene. Pretty reasonable. It's a good stable of 9s. Onto the fly halves. Obviously, this is an area which is just rough for the Hurricanes and Hurricane supporters. So we've got Jackson Garden-Bishop, James Marshall, and Fletcher Smith. So who do we lose? Bowden Barrett to the Blues, and we picked up nobody. So we must be holding out. There must be a long-term plan there. We must be holding out for a bigger, better name. Possibly someone like a Lima Sapawanga to come back for 2021. We've just picked up nobody of note to replace Bowden Barrett, and we're just relying on Garden-Bishop, Marshall, and Smith, who were there last year. All three of those players definitely can play at Super Rugby level, but yet to see really any of them step up and really, truly dominate and run a Super Rugby team from 10. So yeah, good luck to the Hurricanes and good luck to all three of those players if they get the opportunity to play 10 and run things for the Hurricanes. Let's go into the midfield, into the centres. So look, we've got Nani Laumape, Billy Proctor, Matt Proctor's younger brother, Danny Toala, and Peter Umaga-Jensen. So yeah, who did we lose, or who did they lose? Matt Proctor to Northampton in England. Who did they pick up? Nobody. So they're just relying on what they had from last year. Again, that's going to be massively led by Laumape. But yeah, may well see a bit more game time for Peter Umaga-Jensen and Billy Proctor as well. Onto the wings. Vince Aso, Wes Hurson, Ben Lamb, Jonah Lowe, and Cobus van Beek. So who do we lose? Salesi Rayasi to the New Zealand Sevens program. And we picked up Cobus van Beek from the Sharks in South Africa. Bit of a left field pick. Obviously, I think a little bit of a John Plumtree connection before he was picked up by the All Blacks to be an assistant. But yeah, I think you're going to want to get a fair amount out of Hurson and Lamb on the wings. Maybe play Aso a bit more in the centres. And then anything from Jonah Lowe would be great. And I'm mildly interested to see what happens with Cobus van Beek, what kind of pick that was, what kind of off-season buy he was. But yeah, good luck to him. And then at fullback, we got Geordie Barrett and Chase Tiatia. So again, who did they lose? Nihima Skata to Toulon. And then they've retained Geordie Barrett and retained Chase Tiatia from last year. Chase Tiatia can definitely play in the back three. Obviously, Geordie Barrett can essentially play from 10 to 15, certainly 12 to 15. But I would imagine Geordie Barrett's going to have some pretty seriously big minutes at 15. Probably be the kicker and probably take a lot of ownership, but kind of be second, kind of basically play as a second playmaker to whoever is playing 10, be that Jackson Garden-Bishop, Fletcher Smith, or James Marshall. I think he'll really get himself into the line and be a second playmaker there. Probably be the goal kicker as well. So probably barring fitness or barring injury, see big minutes from Geordie Barrett at 15. Chase Tiatia can play in the wings, back up the wings. And I think Vince Aso probably will move into the centres and play a lot with Laumape. So yeah, the Hurricanes are definitely reasonable. And certainly that type 5 makes me feel a lot better after having just have a good analysis of it here. Excuse my throat. But yeah, I feel like it's sort of a case of if the Highlanders could have the Hurricanes forward pack, they would be in business, right? And if the Hurricanes could have the Highlanders backline, they may well be in business this year as well. It's sort of like the Hurricanes and the Highlanders have kind of got half teams. The Highlanders have got a half team in the forwards, a half team in the backs, and the Hurricanes have kind of got a half team in the forwards. So yeah, not really expecting too much from either the Highlanders or the Hurricanes this year in the New Zealand Conference. I think the Crusaders are looking damn good to be, maybe top dog again in the New Zealand Conference. But I think they'll be pushed pretty hard by the Chiefs, and I think the Blues will also push the Chiefs pretty hard. So yeah, for me, the New Zealand Super Conference, I sort of see it going, at the outset here with no major injuries. Obviously there will be major injuries, and there will be form issues, and then there'll be Super Rugby crazy zany amazing players that come out of the woodwork as well. But just looking at everything as the season starts, it's very hard to go past the Crusaders as your number one New Zealand team. I think the Chiefs will be 2, the Blues will be 3, and then it's going to be a real dogfight between the Hurricanes and Highlanders for who comes 4 and 5. In fact, I'm just going to go there and say my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So Crusaders to win the New Zealand Conference 1, Chiefs 2, Blues 3, Hurricanes 4, and Highlanders 5. That's the order I've got it at the moment. And maybe I'll come and review these picks after 6 rounds, essentially a third of the regular season. I'll see how that pick is playing out, and reassess things. But yeah, so basically been going for an hour there, bang on an hour. It took me a little bit longer than I thought to get that done, but thanks for hanging in there if you can. So just going to finish up by just touching on a couple of different links. So the first link that I want to essentially promote, shout out, show is stuff.co.nz. So again, like I've said, it's really good for New Zealand Super Rugby content, but it's also good for Australian content, Asia Pacific content, even some South African content, and even Northern Hemisphere sometimes. So yeah, if you just go to stuff.co.nz, go to sport, go to rugby, and then go into the Super Rugby tab, it's got a pretty good list of mostly New Zealand centric Super Rugby news. So if I just sort of have a quick look, go through it, I'll just choose out 4 or 5 headlines I can see there at the moment that are a little bit, hopefully back up my point that it's a little bit interesting and not just completely New Zealand centric. So no excuses that the Blues insists Umanga, that being Tana Umanga, the assistant coach. If I scroll down a little bit, there has been a couple of preseason games, so there's quite a lot about those. But for example, Bowden reels in hefty tuna, so a little bit of a entertainment piece there for you. Hooper emulates AB's great, talking about Michael Hooper, letting go of the Waratahs captaincy so that he can focus on his just being a player and then maybe being the continuing to be the Australia captain. How England got Tana's nephew, so talking about Jacob Umanga and how he's been picked in the England Six Nations. Brown's advice to referees, talking about Tony Brown, who's at the Highlanders this year, talking to officials about, trying to be more attacking, try and be, basically try and favour the attacking teams more than the defensive teams. So yeah, that's a few examples of the types of articles that you can get there at Stuff Sport Rugby, Super Rugby, a lot of New Zealand stuff, no pun intended, a lot of New Zealand articles, but also some Australians and other regions as well. 2 more things and then I'm out. So a couple more links that I'm going to put into my show notes. Honourable mention for rugbyworld.com. So I've come across rugbyworld.com. They're definitely Northern Hemisphere centric. If you go into rugbyworld.com, they actually have a Six Nations tab, and they basically did what I said I couldn't find, i.e. they have kind of collated all of the Six Nations information into like one tab, and then they've collated all the different teams into basically links, one underneath each other, or one below. So they've got essentially team guides for Ireland, England, Wales, Scotland, France, and Italy. It's got their fixtures, it's got their squad, and then it's got the Six Nations tickets, Six Nations tables, Six Nations injuries, blah blah blah. So I think basically rugbyworld.com, go to tournaments and go to Six Nations 2020. It seems to be, in my opinion, with just a quick look over it, a really good guide or a really good resource for your Six Nations. And I think I'll be using it in the future if I talk more about the Six Nations as it gets underway, starting this coming weekend, February 1st. And then finally, super.rugby. So super.rugby is essentially the Super Rugby official website. It's the official home of Super Rugby. So this podcast is going to talk a lot about Super Rugby, and yeah, super.rugby is pretty much like the official home of Super Rugby. It does a pretty good job of, results and fixtures, and even has a fairly reasonable match centre where you can get some pretty good data out of games that have been played, and no doubt I'll be using that a fair amount to sort of, analyse and review games that happen throughout the Super Rugby tournament. So yeah, thank you very much. That's pretty much all I wanted to talk about. Basically, a little bit of a corrections there at the start for my Six Nations ramble overview. So yeah, got a few corrections there done, and then basically just a real kind of like deep dive into the New Zealand conference for Super Rugby, because that's basically what I know. I can find good resources for it, and I can have a lot of opinions around the players that have come in and out of the 5 teams there, the 5 New Zealand teams. Yeah, and then I gave you my picks in terms of ranking where everybody's going to be, 1 to 5 in that New Zealand conference. And then yeah, I just finished off with a good resource for the Six Nations there, Rugby World, and a good resource for Super Rugby, super.rugby. So thanks a lot for listening to me. Thanks a lot for viewing, if you did that too. So yeah, thanks a lot for listening, thanks a lot for watching. Having a bit of fun here, getting some of these podcasts up. It's a bit of work, but I have some free time, as I've said before. For me currently it's Chinese New Year holiday. It's actually Chinese New Year Day as I do this one. So yeah, for me, it's giving me the opportunity to essentially have a week off from work, a week off from life really, be very low-key and relaxed, and just catch up on things. And it's just given me a lot of time to sort of get this podcast underway and get quite a number of episodes out, because essentially I've only been doing this for 1 week, and I've already managed to get something like 7 or 8 podcasts out, which I think is pretty good by me. And hopefully, yeah, you enjoy them too. But yeah, moving forward when life is more normal and basically I don't have holiday time, and we just get into the flow of the Super Rugby competition and the flow of the Six Nations, I think I'll pretty much just be coming here certainly once a week, but maybe twice a week maximum. Yeah, so I wouldn't expect more than 2 or 3 podcasts a week. I think that would probably be my normal kind of production. But, just to get things up and running and all the different ideas and all the different opinions that you can have when you start something new. Yeah, I'm on a roll, I'm on a run. So thanks a lot if you've, like I've said, given this a listen or watched this or any of my other podcasts over the last week or so. So thank you very much. That'll be all for me. Almost at 1 hour and 10, so again, length for me, gets a little bit long sometimes. But check out the show notes. I should hopefully have timestamps, so you can essentially just go through and just look at the smaller sections if that's all you want to look at, rather than having to listen to me for 1 hour and 10 minutes or whatever. So thank you very much. One more time. Happy Chinese New Year. Good luck with everything that you're doing. And ka kite anua. I'll see you again. Thanks a lot.